Okay, let's dive into this. You sent over the stack of articles, some online posts too, all about these really unusual jobs, stuff you probably wouldn't even think exists, right?
Exactly. The sources you shared, they really open up this weird corner of the job market, roles that fill these like very specific needs, often pretty unexpected ones.
Totally. So, our mission here for this deep dive is to kind of explore these unconventional careers, figure out what they actually, involve based on the material, and maybe, just maybe, stretch our idea of what work can even mean.
Yeah.
Some of them sound just bizarre at first glance, but the sources suggest they fill these unique gaps, use surprising skills, or get this, can even pay really well.
It's definitely about thinking outside the box, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
looking at skills and what the market needs in ways that just completely bypass traditional job descriptions. These sources, they really push those boundaries.
Absolutely. So let's jump into some
Right? These first few jobs your sources highlighted, they seem to tap into like unique social needs or services in today's world.
like the professional cuddler. Okay, when I saw that, I have to admit, my first thought was seriously.
Oh yeah, it's a real thing. According to the articles, the role is about providing um, platonic physical comfort for people dealing with loneliness, maybe depression, trauma, or just that basic human need for, non-sexual connection, a need that maybe isn't being met otherwise.
And it's from a stranger, that's the part. The sources mentioned there's actually quite a bit of flexibility described too, setting your own hours, maybe working from home, building up clients, or just doing one-off sessions. It sounds like it exists because, well, there's a need for safe, platonic touch when lots of people feel kind of isolated.
Exactly. It taps right into that feeling of disconnection some people have, offering a service to help them feel less alone just through simple physical presence and comfort.
Okay, thinking about support roles, but totally different vibe the professional bridesmaid. What do the sources say there?
Yeah, so this isn't your wedding planner, right? Or the person doing the ceremony. The role described is more like being a friend for hire, just for the wedding day.
Okay, but like a friend who guarantees zero drama.
That's pretty much it. The articles listed things like being an organizer, a confidant for the bride,
Yeah.
and crucially, just being a non-complaining member of the wedding party. Someone who's just there to help things run smoothly, offer support.
So it sounds like the main skill is just getting along really well with people and being that calm, helpful person during what's usually a pretty high stress event.
Mm,
Fills a kind of social logistics gap, maybe.
absolutely fills a social support need on a day that's supposed to be, huge and joyful, making sure the bridal party works together and is supportive.
And then there's the online dating ghostwriter. Now, this one feels super specific to, like, right now, our digital age.
It really does.
Yeah.
The service here is basically writing profiles for people, for dating sites, dating apps, that sort of thing.
Because, let's be honest, writing about yourself, especially trying to make a good first impression online, not everyone's great at that.
Right.
So the value, according to the material, is helping people who struggle with putting themselves into words to seriously boost their chances of finding a match.
Yeah, it uses writing skills, maybe even a bit of marketing skill to meet this very personal need in the, digital hunt for connection.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting mix of creative writing and matchmaking, but online.
Okay, so we've looked at jobs about human connection, social needs. What about those needing a different kind of sensitivity, like involving your actual senses?
Yeah, your sources point to several jobs that need really refined sensory perception, or maybe just being okay with weird physical sensations.
Like the odor judge.
Yeah.
It sounds fascinating.
It's also called an odor scientist or evaluator. Basically, manufacturers hire these people to rigorously sniff test product smells before they go on sale.
And not just perfume, right? The sources mention things like cleaning products, cosmetics, even prepackaged food, and toys. I never thought about toys having a specific smell profile they're aiming for.
It's all about quality control,
Yeah.
And brand consistency. One article specifically mentioned these twin sisters, Dawn and Samantha Goldworm, and their firm 12.29. They work with brands to sort of establish and maintain their signature scents across different products. It's a mix of science and just having a really, really good nose.
Hmm. And kind of along the same lines, the face feeler, which the sources did say has a slightly more professional name.
Yeah, more often called a sensory scientist. So this job, it involves using your hands to feel people's skin. Testers, right? Before and after they use lotions, creams, cosmetics, and then reporting on the differences, the texture, the feel.
So you need a really keen sense of touch, obviously, but also you'd have to be okay getting really close to people's faces or hands, right? To notice those tiny changes.
Exactly. It links that sensory input directly to how products are developed, making sure they feel the way the brand wants them to feel. Quality assurance again.
And speaking of quality control, there's one that sounds like it requires an acquired taste, the pet food taster.
Okay, now this one might sound totally bizarre, but the sources really emphasize how huge and serious the pet food industry is. Pet owners are getting really picky about ingredients, health benefits, even like what the food smells like to them.
So the job involves checking out the products not just on packaging or nutrition, but also smell, probably appealing to the human buyer as much as the pet texture.
That's
And
just
yeah, taste. They actually taste it.
It's a key quality control step, believe it or not. Unusual, yeah, but essential in a major industry. Making sure the product meets standards that go beyond just basic nutrition, appealing to the senses, both the pets and the owners. Surprisingly critical role.
Okay, so we've gone from refined senses. What about jobs involving more like physical interaction with the environment or doing specific, maybe challenging tasks?
Yeah, this next group from your sources, they really highlight jobs that make money from weird physical tolerances or patience or dealing with specific kinds of places.
The golf ball diver. That sounds like you need to be pretty comfortable in murky water.
Oh, absolutely. One article called it professional recycling, basically. These divers, they go down into water hazards on golf courses and retrieve all the lost balls.
And it's not just grabbing them, right? The sources said they get cleaned, repackaged, resold. You can work for a company or even strike deals directly with golf courses.
But what's really striking from the source is the contrast.
Yeah.
The job itself is described as not exactly glamorous, murky water, maybe hazards like snakes, lifting heavy bags of wet golf balls,
Right.
but then the potential money.
Potential money like earning upwards of $100 an hour. One source even mentioned this guy, Glenn Berger, claiming he made over $15 million during his career doing this.
Wow.
That's some serious cash for what's essentially recycling and recovery work.
It definitely makes you look at lost golf balls differently, right?
Mhm.
And the value in recovering waste from a sport where so much gets lost.
Okay, totally different, but still outdoorsy. The worm picker.
Right. This is a job working outside, often at night apparently, hunting for and collecting earthworms.
And who's buying these worms? The sources said mainly fishermen needing bait, commercial fishing companies using them for different things, and schools or labs for teaching and research.
And what's interesting is the lack of formal qualifications mentioned. The sources say payment is often per 1,000 worms collected. So you need real commitment, you need to be efficient, and apparently have a firm grip to make a living from it.
Yep.
It's just straight up labor and knowing the environment is changed for cash to meet a specific need, live bait, biological specimens.
Okay, now here's one that turns patience directly into money, the line stander.
This is exactly what it sounds like. You hold a spot in a queue for someone else,
Mhm.
someone who doesn't want to wait or maybe just can't wait themselves.
The sources gave examples like waiting for tickets, movies, concerts, sports games, or those big product launches like a new iPhone or gaming console, or even just holding a spot in line for Black Friday sales, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this job exists purely because some people value their time so much, they'll pay someone else to spend their time waiting instead. The sources even pointed out there are websites and apps specifically for booking these services or for offering your services if you want to try it. It's like the gig economy, finding a way to monetize inconvenience.
Requires huge amounts of patience, I'd imagine, and just being okay with standing outside, maybe in bad weather.
Yeah, a very direct trade.
Hmm.
Time and discomfort for cash.
And sticking with physical environments, but maybe a bit more
Mm-hmm.
fun. The water slide tester.
Huh. Yeah, that one probably sounds pretty good to most people. The job, according to the sources, is basically checking out water slides at resorts, theme parks, hotels, making sure they're fun, yeah, but also safe before the public gets on them.
Imagine that's your daily task, just riding water slides. Paints a pretty fun picture, though I'm guessing there's more to it, like checking safety stuff, speed, maybe.
For sure, it combines risk assessment with, like, user experience testing, but in a very direct, physical way for the whole leisure and tourism industry.
Okay, we've covered human interactions, sensory skills, physical tasks. Let's wrap up with maybe a couple that need really specific expertise or maybe just a tolerance for the really unusual.
Right, your sources had a few final ones that need either a lot of prior training or just a very unique kind of resilience, let's say.
The hippotherapist. We mentioned this briefly before, but the sources really stressed something important here.
Yeah, absolute crucial point. The sources explain the name literally means treatment with the help of a horse. It's using the horse's natural movement, the therapeutic benefits of that, to help human patients with different conditions.
Like patients with speech issues, physical problems, or mental health disorders, they benefit from the horse's rhythm, its movement, as part of their therapy plan.
But, and this is the key detail they highlighted, you don't just become a hippotherapist because you like horses in therapy.
Mhm.
The sources were super clear. You have to already be a qualified, licensed physical therapist or occupational therapist or a speech and language therapist first. Then you do this specialized training and certification in hippotherapy on top of that.
Ah, okay.
It's an advanced specialization within existing regulated medical fields. It's definitely not some entry-level job you just walk into.
That's a really important difference from a lot of the other unusual jobs we talked about. Now, a completely different end of the spectrum in terms of unusual tolerance, the gross stunt tester.
Yeah, if you've ever watched those reality shows like I'm a Celebrity or Survivor,
Yeah.
and you see those often pretty disgusting challenges,
Yeah.
the person who tested them first.
Right. Their job, according to the sources, is to personally try out these tasks, make sure they're actually safe enough for the contestants to attempt, and that they have the maximum possible, gross out factor for TV.
It's definitely a niche job, requires a really high tolerance for unpleasant stuff. Think eating insects, wading through slime, being in small spaces with creepy crawlies, stuff like that. But the sources did mention potential pay of up to $800 a day for this unique kind of bravery.
And you kind of have to wonder how much competition there is for a job like that, right? Given what it involves, it's a job purely created by the demands of reality TV production.
Pretty much. It leverages a specific tolerance for the extreme to create, well, compelling, if sometimes repulsive, entertainment.
And finally, one that sounds like the literal definition of a dream job, bed tester, or sometimes called professional sleeper.
Yeah, this is described as usually being a temporary gig, and surprisingly not super competitive, according to the sources.
Yeah.
Clients like bedding companies, bed designers, maybe luxury hotels, hire people to really rigorously test out comfort levels, sleep quality, even room conditions.
One source actually called it a potential dream career, pun fully intended, which is hard to argue with. But while it sounds amazing, it does serve a real purpose for companies trying to perfect their products or guest experiences using actual feedback from someone while sleeping on the job.
Exactly. It's applying sensory evaluation, experiential evaluation, to comfort and rest,
Mm.
which is obviously super important for industries focused on sleep products and hospitality.
Wow. We've covered such a wild range here, from, providing emotional comfort and writing dating profiles to diving for golf balls, testing water slides, sniffing products, feeling faces, standing in lines for hours.
Sleeping professionally, tasting pet food, picking worms, testing gross stunts, even using horses for therapy.
Yeah, and what all these sources seem to show together is just the sheer variety of needs and niches that actually exist out there, and how thinking creatively or just unconventionally about skills and services can lead to real, sometimes surprising jobs.
So what's the big takeaway from all this for you listening?
I think the key thing from these sources is that the world of work is just way broader and honestly weirder than maybe your average job fair would suggest.
Totally. These jobs, whether they need loads of prior training like hippotherapy or just specific tolerances in patients like line standing or worm picking, they show there's value in unexpected skills, unique viewpoints, filling needs nobody else thought of.
And like the sources pointed out, some of them, like golf ball diving or maybe gross stunt testing, can actually pay surprisingly well. It really hammers home that idea that if you think creatively about where needs are, what problems need solving, or even just what unique skills you have, you might find opportunities way off the beaten path.
It definitely encourages us to look past the obvious, doesn't it? And think about how diverse skills, niche needs, and just unconventional thinking can come together to create legitimate careers, sometimes really successful ones.
Exactly. So here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on, inspired by this whole deep dive into weird work. In a world where lots of people are chasing the same conventional jobs, what unique skill or maybe even just tolerance do you have that might be valuable in some unexpected niche? What unconventional problem could you solve, or what need could you meet in a way no one else has really thought about?